Hi, welcome to Revive and Rise. I'm your host, Melody Parrish, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Today, in this episode, we're going to talk about how we can be two things at one time. Two emotions can exist at one time. And I think it's very important for us to understand that right now in this moment. So for the month of February, we'll be talking about love. And kind of a coincidence, right? But we're going to be talking about love, and it's so important at this time when there's so much hate in the world right now and so much negativity. We need to fight that hate with love, because the only way to stomp out hate is love. And love is powerful. Love is the most powerful emotion that we have, that we're able to express. And it's so important that we use that power for good. And I wanted to talk because there's a lot of the idea of us versus them. And I'll be talking about that several times throughout this month. But that whole idea and belief that there is an us and a them. And we've put people in various categories, and we use that to their disadvantage. Some people use it for their own advantage, but some people use it to disadvantage others and to leave them oppressed and marginalized and hurt them. And, at this point, it creates that us and them idea, creates a movement and a hatred and a belief, a negative belief about someone. And once you get that negative belief rooted into you, it's hard to dig it out. And I talked about that in the last episode a little bit, where you have to find a negative belief system, and then you have to work very hard to unlearn that belief system or get that belief system out. And that is true also, not just with us personally and the way we believe things about ourselves, but also the way we believe things about other people. And we have, this world lives with a very binary way of thinking, and we've come a long way from that, but it still exists. One in society's mind, I feel like in a lot of things, a person can either be this or that. The person cannot be both. It's either one thing or the other thing. And then once it's determined which one you are, then you are put into that group of people with those characteristics. And that, I feel like, develops a belief system that can be positive and used for positive things, but it more likely than not, it's used in negative ways, and it feeds into that same us and them machine that seems to really be running right at this moment and really gaining a lot of momentum right at this moment. And I just want to point that out and spend a little time with you pointing out how that's wrong. And, we can say it's wrong. We can give examples of how it's wrong, but we can also look to nature. We can look to nature and see how that non-binary idea of thinking and idea of observing is prevalent in nature. And that speaks to a lot of people on a spiritual level, because a lot of people believe either in the creator of this world, of the universe, or they believe in Mother Earth herself. There's other ways to believe in other beliefs, but mainly a lot of the belief systems of people come from the earth and ideas about the way the earth moves, the way the earth works, the way the earth was created, and the beauty of the earth. So I want to start there because that is the most basic example that I know to give. And the most basic thing I can think of is dawn. And dawn is that time between either the sunrise or the dusk of the sun before the sunset. So you have dawn and dusk. And if anyone knows me, they know that my favorite thing in the whole world is a sunrise or a sunset. And I love it. And I just chase them. I go and see, I've seen so many and so many different places, so many different areas, so many different seasons, so many different times, and they're all different. Every one of them's different. It has the same principles and the same ideas, but every sunrise is different. Every sunset is different. And the dawn and the dusk before those events are the most beautiful creations of all. And the reason is because of the colors. Right before the sunrise in that dawn is my favorite time because it just is symbolic of the beginning of the day. And when that dawn happens and those colors start to pop and the light begins to come in, you start to hear all the different animals, the crickets chirp, the bugs buzz, the fish jump, the birds sing, everything, the world seems to come alive at dawn. And it's just amazing, the feeling you get, the colors you see. And that's what I want to really discuss, is the colors that you see. It's not just, it's dark. It's a dark midnight blue, black kind of color, and whoop, now it's white and it's bright and you can see everything. It's a gradual process, and there's so many different colors, the pinks, the purples, the blues, the oranges, the yellows. It's just so beautiful, and how they melt into each other. There's no specific color. There is not one specific color, but they're various shades, and they're various colors that mold together. So it's not either blue or yellow. It's not either red or purple. That's not the way dawn works. The way dawn works is that there's so many different colors. There's the blue that turns into purple, and there's like 5 or 6 shades of each of those colors, and then it turns into like an orange, and then a red or a yellow, and it just makes its way to. There's so many different colors in there. There can be 40, 50 colors in one part of the dawn. And then in the next part, there's just as many. In the next part, there's just as many. And so before long, by the time the sun rises, you've seen over 100 colors in just one sunrise. Now there's different quantities of those colors too. So every sunrise will be different because of the quantities of the shades of blue and the shades of red and the shades of purple that are combined in there. And that's the beauty of it. And dawn means that the day is beginning. All of those colors are so many different opportunities that are offered to us at the beginning of the day. There's so many choices and opportunities and ways for us to use those differences, ways for us to use those multiple things that are created and exist in that one time frame throughout the day. And that can be in a time continuum, that can be in a physical space, or that can be within us, within our being. And that can be emotional things that we're feeling. That can be our mental capacities and our mental states. That can be our physical capabilities. That can be our surroundings. It can be so many different things, but there's not only 2 specific things. There's not only 2 groups. There's not just us and them. That mentality is just so false, and it's proven by nature. It's proven by the creator of this world. The creator of this world is far too artistic, far too majestic, far too much more than we can imagine to just limit things to a binary options. And for us to think that human beings, with all our wonderful abilities and glorious characteristics, would be just 2, us and them, that's absurd. And that's so ignorant. And we're more educated than that, right? And if you look at the sunset, I love sunsets, and I love how both sunrises and sunsets, they reflect off of water, off of snow, they reflect off of so many different things that can be around. Even in cities, they can reflect off of buildings and windows and so many different things. And I love that about them. And you have the dusk that goes into the sunset, and you can watch all of the different colors, all of the different sounds, all of the different things that are happening. Temperatures either rise or fall, in those times. And it's just amazing that once you get to the sunset and once the sun actually sets, you'll have experienced 100 different colors in different quantities. And no sunset is the same either. And the sunset to me symbolizes the closing of the day and how we, in our minds, need to close that day. We don't need to think about what has happened or what will happen, but we need to be present in that time and just close that day. Just like at the beginning of the day. We need to be present at that moment and open the day, open the opportunities. And we need to close the opportunities at the end of the day. And with those ideas and those examples, it just shows so clearly how we're supposed to live our lives and how we're supposed to think, how we're supposed to be open to so many different things. We're supposed to be open to differences because they're beautiful, just like the different colors of the sky at the different times, the different sounds. Our differences between human beings are just as beautiful and just as amazing. And the different shades of colors just show us by example that we can be so many different things. There's not just red and blue, but there's various shades of red and blue that exist. In, like I said, in one sunrise and one sunset, there are at least 100 colors that exist in that one event, that one moment. Again, nothing in the world is binary. And so we don't need to, as human beings, make things binary. We don't need to say, well, there's two groups in this world. There's us and there's them. Because when you isolate things like that, when you start making that belief system, which it happens, that belief system is made. It is created by human beings. Because as I just explained, the creator of this world, the creator of this universe, Mother Earth, whatever you may believe in, did not create this world like that. They did not create human beings like that. Human beings were created with so many different facets. We are multifaceted creatures. There's not just an us and them. There's not just black and white. There's not just Americans, not Americans. There's not just legals and illegals. And what in the hell does that even mean? Legal. People are not legal or illegal. That's ridiculous. But we've come to make this belief system. We've come to develop this idea. And like I talked about before we acquire these kinds of thoughts and these kinds of ideas, we need to stop and think about where it came from. Where did this idea come from? Where did these suggestions come from? Where did these beliefs come from? And then, wait, do I trust that person that came up with these beliefs? Why am I believing these things? Why am I trusting this person? Am I believing this belief system because so-and-so says so? Or am I believing this belief system because I see it with my own eyes? Am I believing this belief system because I have experienced that? We need to think more logically about these things and about how much love is in the world and how we need to show love in this world. Things are not just this or that. Another example of that is how, our emotions, if we think about emotions and we stop and think about the way we feel about things in the way we perceive things, it's not just two. It's not just a binary thing. Anger and joy can exist. Pain and joy can exist. Happiness and sadness can exist at the same time. And we need to learn that, because there's so many times in society that society will judge people so quickly about the way they react to things and the way that they express things. And for example, a lot of people will say something very, very sad has happened to you. Say that you are grief-stricken for some reason, or experiencing some trauma for some reason. And people automatically think that you should be moping around or crying or unable to function. But people don't understand that sometimes, even when you're going through these things, even when you're going through times of despair or grief or anger or pain, you can still laugh. You can still be happy. You can still experience joy, even if you're feeling that pain and even if you're experiencing that grief or that trauma. And one thing I'll share some examples with you of this. I spoke with someone when I was in Minneapolis, and when I spoke to them, we were just talking, and one thing I never did when I was up there, I talked to many people and I saw many things, but I didn't ask them point blank, how are you doing? I didn't ask them, what do you think about all these things that's going on? Because sometimes you just don't want to talk about it. Sometimes you want to talk about something else, right? And so I was talking to this gentleman, and he was telling me, he did open up, and he said, well, it's difficult with everything going on. And I said, yeah, I understand. And I was just listening to him, and he was just talking. And he said, but it's really difficult to live. And, I just listened, I just paused. I was quiet. And he said, and he continued, and he said, his partner was graduating from college, and so he wanted to take him to dinner, to have a nice dinner to celebrate. And he said, we went to dinner, but I couldn't help but feel such anguish. I couldn't enjoy myself because, there were so many people that were having such a hard time, and there were helicopters flying around, and you'd hear police sirens, and you'd hear people screaming. And he said, we couldn't enjoy our dinner, knowing that was going on. And what would people think if we did? And, I thought about that. And I thought about, people do tend to feel that way, that when something terrible happens, and when so many people are in pain and hurting, it is difficult to experience any kind of happiness or any kind of joy. One reason is because you don't want to say, oh, well, I'm excited that this happened because, so many people are hurting. And in the same way, when you're in that state of grief or despair or trauma, and you laugh or you enjoy yourself, then people think you're fine, or people think that you're no longer struggling. So it can be a feeling that you have yourself, but it can also be a feeling that other people would have about you, and that you're going to be judged. And I'll tell you from experience, when you're in a place of desperation, when you're in a place of grief or trauma, the thought of being judged on top of that is just mind-blowing. And you will avoid that at all costs, even if it doesn't make sense. None of us want to be judged. And if there's a threat of being judged at all, we're going to avoid that. So I want to talk about now, after giving you that scenario, I want to talk about now my experience with the protest in Minneapolis. I was very emotional there, and I have to say that was that was the first protest that I've ever cried. And it was the first protest that I was speechless at. And I cried for a variety of reasons. That protest was really enlightening for me in so many ways. And I cried for so many reasons. First was the obvious, for everything that was happening. And usually I have to say, when I'm at a protest, I'm usually angry. And I'm so angry that the tears don't come out right then. The tears come out later, but it doesn't come out right then. But this time, there was anger, but there was also immediate tears. Immediate tears. And for a while, I was just silent. I was just silent. I wasn't saying anything. I wasn't doing anything. I was just standing there. Because there was so much anger, and there was so much pain, and there was so much hurt. And I just couldn't stop thinking about the people that are highly impacted by the injustices that we're speaking out about. The people that are terrified to leave their house, the people that are getting so abused, the people that are getting so mistreated, that are getting beaten, that are getting kidnapped, that are getting killed, that are getting, I couldn't help but think about those people. And then I saw something that was totally amazing to me, because we were in sub-zero weather, sub-zero temperatures. It was so cold that there were parts of you that would just go numb, and other parts of you that would just go numb. And it was so cold that sometimes it would be very painful. And there were people constantly coming around with hand warmers, with toe warmers. They were offering each other, hot beverages, different things to eat. People constantly coming to ask how you're doing. Are you doing okay? they were constantly asking, questions like that. And if people said, no, I'm not, then they would talk to them, or they would listen to them. And then every now and then people would be so angry, but you would have to have a break of some sort. So you would have to either say something silly, or you would have people that would say something silly, or do something silly, that would just make you laugh for a minute. Some people were shouting things that would make you just laugh. And you were thankful for those people. You were thankful for those people that would just break that tension, would just break that silence. And I remember looking at all of the people that were there and the love that they were showing. And I remember just being so overwhelmed with such a strong feeling that there are people out there that love each other so much, and that will stand up for other humans that they don't even know, that they'll stand up for justice, and that they'll speak out. And at the same time, there's so many people that will take care of each other. And it was an amazing thing, because you would see people that were cold, that were tired, and that would go back to their cars to warm up, or some place to warm up, or maybe they would have to go home for a nap and then come back. And at those same times, those people that would have to take a break, that would need to just recharge, that would need to just warm up, that would need to just mentally take a moment to themselves, they would go, and then more people would come in. So there was like this ebb and flow of people. There would be people coming and going, and it was like an unspoken language between the two. Oh, you need to rest. You go rest a while, and I'm going to take over this fight, until the next person needed to rest. And then they'd rest and they'd come back. And there were people that were showing up every day. There were people that showed up multiple times in the day. There were people that stayed out there for a long time. There was stay out there all day. And so there's all a variety of people. And just to see them supporting each other, and just to be able to witness these two things that are total opposite but existing in the same space. Love and anger, joy and anger, because it brought me a lot of joy to see that much humanity and that much love and that much caring for each other, that much community in one space. And at the same time, seeing so much anger too at that same space. It was such a beautiful experience for me, and it just brought me to tears. And it still makes me very emotional, and brings tears. And that's what I'm talking about. It's not just one or the other, but it can be both. And we see that so much now in this moment in time. And I feel like a lot of it comes from our younger generation. And from the younger generation, I'm speaking of like not just high school, college, but younger people that are learning that and developing this way of thinking, and then they're teaching it to the older generation, because you see a lot of the older generation coming around to this whole idea that there's not just one thing or the other, but there's both. There's a form of both things that can occur in a situation, and an idea, and a belief system, and emotions can exist in the same space. Multiple emotions that exist in the same space, because at any time when you're trying to name how you feel, many emotions come out because of an event, because of a moment, because of an opportunity, because of a certain space. So many different emotions come out. That's why you can ask somebody how they feel at the moment, and then ask them how they feel like an hour later, and the emotions will be different. Maybe slightly different, but they'll be different. And so I want us to try to think about these things, because you have to learn and to love both of them, especially when we're talking about ourselves. And when we're talking about love for ourselves, we have to love every part of ourselves, not just one. Not just one part, not just one emotion, not just one feeling, but we have not just one characteristic, but we have to love them all, and we have to learn to love them all. And that may take days, months, hours, decades, years, but we have to learn to love them all. However it is, it may develop, the love may develop from the dislike or the hate, but we have to develop the love within ourselves. And once that love comes, then comes acceptance. And we have to have for ourselves, that can be so many different facets, so many different things about ourselves. We have to learn to love those things and those parts of ourselves. And then we have to accept ourselves and the way we are, and the different facets of ourselves. They're not all positive. No one person is completely positive. We have to love both parts of ourselves. That's why I was saying that there could be many different parts of ourselves. Anger and joy and pain and goodness and sadness and brokenness, and all these different things can be true. Excitement and pleasure, all of those things can be true in the same person at the same time. We just have to learn how to accept all those things about ourselves. And we have to love those things about ourselves and about others. It's not just that person is a them. They're totally different than us. Because if you stop and think about it and start looking at people as multifaceted human beings, then you will find so many things about each of us that are so similar. We're so much more alike than we are different. And we're so much, and we may look different, and we may act different. And there are parts of us that may be different, but there is always so many things that we have in common. And not just simple things like male or female, or, white, black, brown. Not just those things. Blonde hair, brown eyes, curly hair. Not those physical things, short, tall, but There's so many different things about us that are so similar in the way we think and the way we feel and the way we express things and the way we just are. There's so many things that are similar to us, and we need to start to look and to realize and to love those things that are different about ourselves and that are different about others. And I'll speak more about all of these different things in future episodes. But first, we need to break down and begin to build that foundation for the belief system that there's so many different things, different facets of people, different things within us and within nature. Always, if you want to find a belief system, a foundation, an idea, I always go back to nature. Just find something solid. Just find something that's stable or substantial or something that you can definitely rely on. And I can always go back to nature. I can always go back to the beliefs of the creation of this world. I can always go back to my spirituality, to where I find comfort, to where I find peace. And whenever I look there to nature, to the creation of this world, there's so many different things that exist at the same time. Even if you look at the earth and if you look at the layers of the earth in the same space, there can be so many different colors, so many different textures, so many different things all in that one space. So I invite you to take a look within yourself and within the world around you, just to see and appreciate all the different things that are around us and the different ways the world works and the different ways that human beings in the world works, the different processes, the different expressions. Just look, just observe, and just start to see the world in that way. And try the practice of seeing the dawn, seeing the sunrise, seeing the morning, whatever time you wake up, the beginning of your day. Just see that as the beginning of the day filled with a multitude of possibilities and opportunities. And likewise, see the end of the day, the dusk, the sunset, as a multitude of things that exist, a multitude of things that have occurred during the day, and put that to a close. The idea is to be more present at the moments, at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Thank you for joining us. Go to my Substack at Melody Parrish. Listen to some episodes, get to know me, look at what I write, drop a comment, start a conversation. I want to hear from you. And just remember that you do not have to suffer alone.